Good morning. I hope you've had a great spring break. I hope you got to do fun things around the house, like help your parents or siblings cook dinner one day, or maybe go outside and play a fun new game. Um, Over spring break, I got a new book in the mail, and some of y'all might know that I absolutely love hiking. It's one of my favorite things to do. I really enjoy anything outside, but hiking is definitely my favorite. One of the best places to go hiking is some of the different national parks around the U.S. So I got this great book. It's a nonfiction book, so that means it's all true and it's informational. And it is about the different national parks of the U.S. Now, the national park that's closest to us here in Athens is going to be the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, and that is up in North Carolina and Tennessee. Today we're going to be introduced to our national parks and kind of why they exist and the history behind them. And then we're going to get to learn about one that some people don't even know exists because it's a little smaller than normal and it's harder to get to, and you will find out why. So to begin in our story, we are given a map. This is a map of the United States, but at the top it says contents. So instead of having a normal table of contents book, this book is broken up into regions. So you'll see the pages about the East are on pages 6 through 23. So if you want to read about some of the national parks in California, to figure out what page they're on, first you'll find California, it's way over here. And then you'll see this arrow says West. Pages 66 through 83 is going to tell you all about those national parks in California. So it's a really interesting way to combine maps and a table of contents page. Welcome. Welcome to the national parks of the USA. Get ready for a big adventure. On your journey through the national parks, you'll find mind-boggling wonders, from the continent's biggest peak to a mile-deep canyon, dark swamps filled with critters, and volcanoes that pelt lava straight into the sea. Creatures big and small abound these wild lands, from the thundering bison to tiny seahorses. The parks protect some of America's most spectacular landscapes, wild animals, and precious plants. But these natural reserves didn't always exist. A few forward-thinking citizens dreamed up the idea way back in the 1800s. They saw the flood of pioneers streaming into the American West, gobbling up land for houses, farms, and other human purposes. These visionaries were worried that all the majestic vistas would disappear and called for territory to be set aside in its natural state. There are a lot of big fancy words in that paragraph. What it means is there were a lot of people moving from the eastern states like Georgia, and they wanted to move west towards Kansas, Oklahoma, all the way over to Oregon and California. But they were cutting down trees, they were cutting down grasslands and building houses there. And some people thought, well, we should save some of this. It's important for people to have homes, but it's also important for us to save some of this landscape, some of these environments, so that we can enjoy the scenery, the way things look, the pretty views, and the animals, so the animals have a place to stay too. In 1872, Congress and President Ulysses S. Grant established the world's first national park, Yellowstone. People came from all over by train and stagecoach to see its unbelievable wonders. Geysers shooting hundreds of feet into the sky, hot springs painted wild colors, and huge bears, elk, and wolves. By the turn of the century, other national parks were born, such as Sequoia, which has trees as big as 20-story buildings, and Yosemite, where waterfalls roar down cliffs taller than skyscrapers. Now, the national park preserves monuments, battlefields, and other sites, but the 61 national parks are still the cream of the crop. Each one protects a unique landscape and sites that you can't see anywhere else. What are you waiting for? Turn the page and see what you can discover in the great national parks of the USA. So every day for the next few weeks, we're going to be learning about a different national park. To start with, we're going to start on the East Coast. So this is near where we see Georgia down here. We have South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia. We also have Tennessee right here. So there's a chance that you might have been to some of these national parks, especially the Great Smoky Mountains are not too far away from where we're at. The eastern United States is crowded with big cities, but wild, untamed lands hide in their midst. In the ancient Appalachian Mountains, black bears, deer, and elk roam. Waterfalls trickle and tumble, and mist blankets the valleys like puffy cotton balls. It's a different scene on the coast. In northern waters, lobsters and crabs patrol the seafloor or hide in tide pools, and loons cry their eerie howls on the surface. In the aquamarine seas of Florida, coral reefs are like bustling, multicolored cities for fish. There are even traffic jams. Because this part of the country was one of the earliest to be settled by Europeans, many of the eastern parks also have historic buildings to explore. Imagine what it was like to be a soldier stationed at a fort 100 years ago, or a settler living off the land in an Appalachian cabin you built yourself. So some of you might remember earlier in the school year, we learned about the different regions of Georgia, and we talked a lot about those Appalachian Mountains when we were learning about our regions, such as the Blue Ridge Valley, the Appalachian Plateau. So on the east, starting from the north, the national parks that we have are Acadia in Maine. It says climb a granite dome for views over the sea or wade into a tide pool to find mussels, limpets, and other creepy crawlies. Shenandoah in Virginia. In Shenandoah, there are more than 500 miles of hiking trails that wind through leafy forests, stroll to the top of round mountains, or to peaceful waterfalls. The Great Smoky Mountains. The Smokies were named for the beautiful bluish fog that gathers around their peaks and valleys. Creatures from salamanders to black bears dwell here. Congaree in South Carolina. Paddling a canoe through the Cedar Creek, stare up at some of the tallest deciduous trees in America. This is the largest old-growth bottomland hardwood forest in the USA. And we'll learn what a lot of those words mean when we learn about each specific park. There's the Everglades in Florida. The Everglades are the largest subtropical wilderness in the country. Alligators, panthers, and birds by the thousands live in these humid forests and prairies. The Biscayne. Parrotfish, gobies, rays, and sharks are just a few of the animal snorkelers spot in Biscayne Bay, just outside of Miami, Florida's biggest city. The Dry Tortugas. With only 7 tiny islands, this Florida park is 99% water. Wade in it to see corals and tropical fish, then explore Fort Jefferson, one of the country's biggest 19th century forts. Ooh, think for a second which park you're the most excited to read about. One thing about this book is we're going to be able to learn a whole lot about the parks just by looking closely at the pictures. And the pictures are actually one of my favorite parts of this story because they're just so beautiful. First, we're going to read about the Biscayne National Park. So as you can see, there's lots of water. We see animals like turtles, we see some fish, we see some crabs, and different types of coral growing. We also see 2 people snorkeling up here. You remember, Biscayne is in Florida. Floating in a boat in Biscayne Bay, you see a huge expanse of turquoise water, islands, and distant mazes of mangrove trees. But 95% of this park is actually underwater. Strap on your snorkel and dip beneath the surface to see a cornucopia of fish and corals, from tiny gobies to colorful parrotfish, who look like they're dressed up for a really tacky dance party. About 600 species of fish live in Biscayne, more than all of the animal species in Yellowstone National Park. There are also plenty of marine mammals like dolphins and manatees. Can you spot a loggerhead turtle? See if you can keep up as she gracefully swims to the surface to take a breath. Can you find the loggerhead turtle? Very good, right there. On the next page, we have a whole lot of graphic features that we find in our nonfiction text. So, first let's start at this map. Our maps tell us where we're at. So right now we're at Biscayne, and we can see a little dot down here in Florida that shows us where Biscayne is compared to the rest of the United States. It tells us that we're in the state of Florida, and that it was founded in 1980. So that wasn't too long ago. And our size. Our size is 172,974 acres. That is really big. Remember, they said most of it is underwater. So let's learn about some of these awesome creatures that we might find if we were to visit Biscayne. This is elkhorn coral. I wonder where it got its name from. This threatened coral lives in shallow water and looks like antlers, sometimes growing bigger than 6 feet. That means that sometimes this coral can grow bigger than Ms.B. Oh my goodness, that's crazy. Seagrasses. Lush underwater seagrass beds offer food and hiding places for many animals, from tiny shrimp to huge manatees. The Florida stranglerfig. What an interesting name. This plant sprouts high on another tree, then spirals its roots down to the ground, often growing so large it shades its host, weakening or killing. Oh my goodness, I bet that's where it gets part of its name from. The Schaus Swallowtail. One of the state's rarest butterflies. That means it's really hard to find. The Schaus Swallowtail lives for only 1 month and has a neat trick. It can stop mid-air and suddenly fly backwards. Whoa, that's cool. The loggerhead turtle. This is that turtle we saw swimming around on the previous page. Sea turtles travel far and wide to find crabs, jellyfish, and seaweed. A female always returns to her birth beach to lay eggs, sometimes a journey of more than 1,000 miles. Wow, they must be really great swimmers if they can swim 1,000 miles. Now, I've seen a bird that looks like this when I've gone to the beach. This is the brown pelican. Brown pelicans can store 3 times as many fish in their beak pouches as they can in their stomachs. That's like having a whole pantry just in your beak. Oh my goodness. No wonder their beaks are so big. The Atlantic bottlenose dolphin. I know this is some of y'all's favorite animals. These friendly creatures often play in the bow waves of boats. They use echolocation to see objects under the water, making clicking sounds and waiting to hear the echoes. I know we also have a lot of friends who really like sharks. Let's read about this one. This is the bull shark. Bull sharks eat just about anything, from fish and turtles to birds and even other sharks. They prefer shallow water, sometimes traveling hundreds of miles upriver. Thankfully, Georgia is still far enough away to where we don't have sharks swimming up our rivers. Next, we're going to learn about the coconut palm. That is our good coconut palm tree that we have seen probably in pictures and movies before. palms grow up to 80 feet tall, and their coconuts can float in the ocean for hundreds of miles before sprouting in a new home. So did you know that coconuts are actually just like giant seeds? Speaking of seeds, once we finish reading about the Biscayne National Parks, we're going to check in on my squash seeds that have grown a ton over spring break. Coral reefs. The oceans are huge, but most sea life lives where there's good food and hiding places like coral reefs. Corals might look like rocks, but they're actually tiny animals that suck calcium from seawater and create protective limestone skeletons. They grow in all sorts of crazy colors and shapes, creating homes for fish. Like a city, there's activity here day and night. Big fish and eels stop by cleaner stations, where cleaner wrasse, shrimp, and gobies nibble parasites and dead skin off their bodies. Tiny damselfish are farmers and grow algae to eat, but watch out, they're protective and might nip at your mask. And neon-colored parrotfish bite off little pieces of coral and poop it out as sand. Now you know where all that sand around the reefs comes from. It's actually parrotfish poop. Ew. Now we have one more box to read, and this one is very important, and I wonder if that's why the author made it in a different color so that it would stand out. This says invasive species, the lionfish. Now think about what it means if someone invades something. It's not normally a good thing, so let's see what this lionfish is up to. Zebra-striped lionfish are beautiful but dangerous. Their 18 feathery spines are so venomous that even human beings can get doozy off a sting from touching them. These foot-long fish are also an invasive species. Biologists believe they first showed up in U.S. waters in 1985 when someone released them from a home aquarium. So these fish have not been here the whole time. They are not normally found in Florida, but someone put them in the waters where they don't live, and they've grown up, and so now a lot of them live there. That's why they're called an invasive species. They quickly spread, eating up native fish. Rangers are now catching lionfish to prevent them from spreading. Their flesh, which isn't poisonous, actually tastes great and is served in some restaurants. Whoa, that would be real scary if I saw that when I was swimming. So I hope you enjoyed learning about all the different parts of the Biscayne National Park. Tomorrow we'll be learning about the Everglades, which is another national park in Florida. And you might recognize a few of the animals down there that are really cool. Before we go, I'm going to show y'all what some of my squash seeds have been up to. I've planted some more. I think it was last Thursday. And so it does look like how, we'll call this bag number 2. Bag number 2 looks like how the seeds did before we went to spring break. They've just turned a little green. They've been in here for a few days. Not a whole lot of change, but we can start to see a little bit of a root. It kind of looks just like a hair growing out of that one. So let's check in on our original bag, and I think a lot of y'all are going to be very surprised. Last time we checked in, we could see a little bit of a root growing, but not a whole lot of change other than they had gotten darker. Well, while we were gone on spring break, it grew roots, it grew a stem, and now it even has leaves. So in just a few days while we were gone, you can see our seeds have grown up a ton. They're about as tall as my hand, almost. This little seed doesn't look like it's taken off. That happens sometimes in gardening. Seeds just don't grow, or they maybe just got a slow start. But as you see, you can see the roots that are growing down at the bottom that are working as straws to suck the water from the paper towel into the stem of our plant. and give it enough water, and the sunlight has helped them grow nice leaves. On the leaves you can see a cool little pattern, and once our leaves grow up to be a little bit bigger, they'll knock the seed casings off that they're wearing, kind of like hats right now. They'll knock the seed casings off, and they'll grow big and tall, so much that they'll need some soil to get some nutrients, and they'll act like that's their food. And so I'll have to plant them in a bucket for that. But for now, they're still small enough to where they're okay to just be getting water and the sunlight in the window. So I bet tomorrow they'll be even taller. I hope your beans are doing well. My challenge for you is I want you to find out. I want you to go onto National Geographic's website and find the page about national parks. I want you to figure out which one you're the most excited to learn about. See you tomorrow.